Away, ay, 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 ay. Away up, ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Away, ay, 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 ay. Away, ay, 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 ay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host, Kira Young, and you've reached me on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are also simulcasting this afternoon on April 29th, 2017, 4:04 p.m. Eastern Time with Real Liberty Media and also with People's Internet Radio. So welcome, everybody. We are freestyling tonight, sort of nodding to the old radio people who used to do pirate radio. We've kind of got that spirit going today. I'm just acknowledging that it's still Mercury retrograde, and you never know what's going to go on. So I've invited a lot of people, and we'll see who shows up. It looks like we do have a few people that are ready to talk about some cool stuff. I'm going to invite our friend Dunn in, and he's going to tell us how we pronounce his last name. He's also with his father, Daniel, and they have a federal lawsuit going on, and I believe it has something to do with some of the events that went down at Standing Rock. So let's try to get Dunn in here, Steve, and thanks for hosting.
It's not working that way. Let me try to.
It's goofy. So goofy.
I think he's in now.
Are you in? Are you in? Hello. I can't
Hello,
tell.
are you there? Hello, are you there? It shows it being in the call.
Okay.
Every time I keep trying to call him, he keeps trying to call me.
Okay. All right. Well, eventually we'll get him in here, and again, this is...
Hello, this is Dunn.
Yay!
Hey,
Welcome to the Bridge.
Connection. Yes.
Woo! Awesome. So how do you say your last name?
Eggink. Just like the compound word, Eggink.
Eggink. Okay.
Yes.
And you're going to tell us about a federal lawsuit, and your dad is one of the people on the lawsuit, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he is the plaintiff. He's the one who filed the complaint. He's been actually reporting this to a lot of different agencies all over, starting from when he was in North Dakota all the way to Washington, D.C., and pretty much filed a complaint about this in every office that there is to complain about things. And
so what is
now it's a federal case. It's a complaint for violation of human rights, abuse of power, treason, fraud against the United States. I mean, pretty much most of the major felonies that have to do with fraud against the United States and violation of people's human rights, conspiracy to commit fraud and conspiracy to abuse people. I mean, it's just endless. It's genocide, torture, all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
All at Standing Rock, obviously.
Right, and he was there, so
yeah.
This is all coming out of his experiences there and what he saw and experienced.
Definitely. Most of it is from what he witnessed, himself, but it's also just a combination of the other things that were reported. I mean, there's obviously were thousands of people that were there, and they were reporting about it, constantly. So it's just everything. It's the whole thing. He's reporting the crime, to the federal court.
So where is it in the process, in the legal process?
So right now, actually, we're at a great time right now because it's right towards the end of the 21 days that the defendants would have to respond to the summons. So when he filed his complaint, he filed a summons along with it and sent the summons out, stamped by the court, the federal court, that says right on the summons that the defendants have 21 days to respond or they get defaulted. In other words, he gets his request, which is for grand jury to be convened to start a grand jury investigation, which leads to an indictment.
So that's and at the same time they have they have grand jury investigations going on to investigate water protectors. So,
Is that right? I mean,
yeah.
you're saying that they're using the grand jury to indict water protectors? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the grand jury system.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so we know that it's a compromised system.
Definitely.
And every time things like this are filed, it's either by some fluke going to go through, or it will be denied, and that will be further proof of the compromising qualities of the system that
Yeah.
we have in
Yeah.
place, which is not a justice system.
I expect them to come through on the promise that's on the summons myself. I don't think that we really. I think that what my dad did in this case was a rare approach to the situation, and not many people. I don't think anyone else did this, and so it's not necessarily comparable to. I mean, I understand that they're pressing charges against water protectors, and they're calling in grand juries, and a grand jury is a jury. Obviously, it's taken from members of the general public who don't have any legal training or anything like that. And so I haven't heard about any grand juries indicting any water protectors. Have you? I mean, I don't. That's not that they have already been indicted.
Yeah, some have gotten convicted of charges, but a lot of the charges have been dropped because there was nothing they just couldn't,
Yeah.
they just couldn't hold.
So
okay,
I can at least explain the process as far as what the court says. I mean, whether or not they just don't follow their own process, that I can't predict, but I can at least say I do know what the process is, like where we're at with that. And at the end of the 21 days, everyone has 21 days. All the 6 defendants have 21 days to respond, except for Trump. Trump has 2 months because he's a federal employee, so he gets 60 days to respond from the time that he received service, which was around the 15th. So, the middle of June, he has to respond. So if he doesn't respond, his lawyers don't respond by the middle of June, Trump will be automatically investigated by a grand jury. Okay, that's according to their court rules. Somehow they just managed to not do what they say they're going to do on the summons. I don't know anything about that, but so anyway, but besides that, the other guys are up for their default on the 21 days for them. Just basically falls anywhere next week, because they were served on various days, like when they received the mail, So all next week, the other defendants are going to be hitting their 21 days deadline for responding. At the point after they fail to respond within 21 days, it automatically defaults. The jury gets called, and then it's a secret jury investigation. The defendants are not allowed to interfere with the investigation. They can't call the court. They can't send any letters. They can't try to motion for dismissal or anything like that. They have to let it roll along and just wait for the jury to announce whether they indicted them or not. And then after the jury has full power to investigate, and it's their duty to investigate. Their job while they're called together is to investigate. So they don't just read the papers and look at the evidence that we present. We're not actually even allowed to present the evidence in this kind of process. You're supposed to just make your claims and, maybe a little bit of supplemental evidence of, documents or something like that to show what your charges are about. But that's it. So pretty much the claim itself is the evidence that they look at the beginning just to start their process, and then they take it from there. They can go as far as they want with calling up public records and even private records of these individuals, and get information to see if there's reason to suspect that there's a crime that's committed. So the grand jury will be 24 people. Their job is to investigate and see if there's probable cause to suspect that crimes have been committed.
Where'd you go?
And I gave them over 40 felony crimes.
You cut out a few times there. Can you go back?
Okay, so basically the grand jury's job is to investigate and see if there's probable cause to believe that crimes have been committed. So they're the ones who are authorizing a warrant. So their job is to just look in and see if there's reason to believe that, you know, some crimes have been committed, and out of the 40 felony crimes that I gave them in the memorandum of law, they should be able to find more than a few that these guys are guilty of, you know, based on what we've said. That's where that's at. So in order for them to not be indicted, what would have to happen is more than a third of the jury, which is, what's a third of 24? Like 8 people or something? Okay, so like more than 8 people would have to, on the jury, would have to say that there is reasonable doubt that any crimes were committed at all. That it's reasonable for them to doubt whether there is even any crimes. So that's what they would have to conclude in order to stop the indictment. The grand jury would, and they're not allowed to get any input whatsoever from the defendant's side. They can only the only one they can talk to is the prosecutor. So the only person involved besides the grand jury is the federal prosecutor.
Okay. So,
U.S. attorney.
if people want to look at it, can I post what you emailed me, like on the blog when I release it?
Yeah, if you could, Kira, if you could just wait like a day for that, so I can send you like an updated PDF. There's just a couple minor changes that I made before it was actually filed. It's just a couple things. I mean, it's a little bit better, you know.
Okay,
so
sure.
That's all I would say about that. But yes, I want to share this. I want to spread it around. I think that this is the kind of case that it involves a lot of people. It's a public issue. This is a constitutional issue that involves everybody's rights. It's like, so it is, in a sense, it's a class action already, like a suggestion of a class action. It's not, you know, even though he just started it by himself, he made it very clear that there's many, many people who are damaged by these crimes that were committed.
Yes, absolutely.
It's robbing. I could be right blatant about what it is. It's robbing. They rob the services, the funds, the use of public monies, the use of police, law enforcement, the use of all that equipment. All that stuff is, according to their own records, is owned by the public. You know, it's owned by the people of North Dakota, the people of the United States, and all services that the United States has that, or law enforcement or anything that has any responsibility, which every federal department has responsibility to Native Americans specifically in federal law. So all of those agencies were essentially robbed from the Native people in this process of these crimes that were committed. So you have robbery from the people of the United States. It's theft of service is actually the legal term of it, theft of services, and theft of funds and theft of rights. So you're getting robbed of your rights, you're getting robbed of your public resources, you're getting robbed of services and money, you know?
So not only emergency management funds were used, emergency services were denied. So it goes like real deep. There's every level of human rights violations. Very extensive human rights violations.
Exactly. And there a lot of people can and should contribute their voices and experiences to the case if they want to. They could send them directly to me, or they can even, you know, send them right to the court as an affidavit, and you just look it up online, Eggink versus Trump, and you'll see the case number, and it's right there on the internet. Several websites that list the current federal court cases, and you can actually address the court, anyone who wants to, and send in their own evidence, and basically just make your own affidavit and get a certified notary of your statement. Anyone who would want to do that, or just contact us and we could send it.
Right. So any water protector that wants their human rights violations to be part of this suit can go online and look up Eggink versus Trump. So it's Eggink, Eggink versus Trump, and you can actually do your own affidavit of your experiences and contribute.
Just mark down the court action. Yes, and just put the court case number with your affidavit.
Yeah, I know plenty of people whose human rights were violated on several occasions um,
Exactly.
by law enforcement, and then also, like I said before, the denial of emergency services and the theft of emergency management funds to terrorize people and
Exactly.
our
That's it.
people.
Terrorize. That's what it was. It was terrorism. It was all that because they're and those are words that are actually used in federal law. Holding people, unlawfully detaining people under terrorizing circumstances. All
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. Intimidation, threat. Intimidation with threats to injuring the party, and then intimidating the person next to them that the person next to them is going to get injured. All of those things are like defined in federal law as very serious crimes that you can, those, put it this way, all of these guys have hundreds and hundreds of years worth of jail time facing them with these charges. It's like they have to kind of negotiate it back from that, but that's where we are at with it. Like we brought
They
forward a whole list of charges that equals hundreds of years of jail time.
and the use of dogs as well.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
would invite you to use my radio shows as public record because I had water protectors I interviewed on this show from August forward who detailed their experiences that could be part of
wow,
this.
yes,
So it is part of the
absolutely,
public record, and each one of them, I'm sure, would consider being part of this
yeah.
since they've
And well,
already
there
told
are
their
some
story
things that,
publicly.
yes, I agree, Kira. That sounds like a great thing to do. I just wanted to say there's some things that I definitely want to mention here, which is there's just some areas that we're basically fighting for to be defended in this case are the treaty rights, because the treaty laws are the supreme law of the land according to the Constitution and the Supremacy Clause. It says this Constitution and the treaties shall be the supreme law of the land. So the United States Constitution itself recognizes the treaties as being on equal level of
Hmm.
importance. You know? So in other words, the United States government can't just like sort of back burner the treaties or like put it as this little side hobby thing, like, oh yeah, those natives always trying to get their treaty rights. It's like they kind of basically marginalize it, right? Is the term they use for that.
Hmm.
Basically, they just kind of shove it aside like it's just like a pet thing, like, oh well, everybody's got their issues and that's the native issue, but it's not just a native issue. This has to do with the actual peace that that we have as humanity living here on this continent. It revolves around that peace that is between the settlers that arrived from many nations across the world to come to this land and have to live in peace with the indigenous people who are here already. And
Hmm.
and what I'm saying about that is that it's as old as the Constitution and older, hundreds of years older. As they were arriving, each of these different so-called sovereign corporations or whatever they were that were showing up here colonizing, entities, all had various treaties that were echoing the same basic principle, which is like, obviously we understand that we have to have peace with you guys if we're going to move forward and do anything here. And
Hmm.
it's been constantly, consistently violated with this agenda of genocide. So in other words, the treaties is saying what we need in order to have peace here. And even though it's been constantly violated by the United States, we still need to preserve the basic principle of it, which is there has to be peace. There has to be recognition, mutual recognition that rights have to be respected, and otherwise, the whole entire United States system is just a fraud, which it pretty much is, unless we
Yeah,
get this right. You know?
right. So,
Yeah,
and we've had a few hundred years to get it right. So
yeah.
no
We're
better,
working
no
on it.
better
Yeah.
time than the present.
Yeah, exactly. And so just going with that momentum that all these people answered the call for Standing Rock to come from so many different nations and responding online and everything else. It's just I don't think any of that was for no reason, and I don't think it's over at all. It's not just like we're just all whining about it or something like, oh no, Trump became the president and we're going to protest against Trump. To me, it's like this is growing. It's not something that's in the past. This is something that that was like the cannonball hitting the water, and now there's the wave effect is happening, you know.
Right. And, you know, there have been a few people who have said, look, we need to look at what's going to be more effective here. We need to back up our actions, you know, our protests or our action. We need to back that up in the court. Otherwise, we're not getting anywhere. It's just a gesture, and it's just sort of asking our slave masters for, you know, extra
Yeah, you
favors.
can't just ask them, right? You can't just ask them and like send letters and say, hopefully Congress will hear us or something like that. You know, you have to take it to them, you know, in every way there is to take it to them. You know, as long as there is a place where we can file a complaint. But it's not just filing a complaint. That's another thing I wanted to mention too. It's not, you're not just complaining to somebody like, I'm not happy with this or whatever. You know, a complaint, when you're talking about something that is your right, it's a secured interest that you have, meaning you're actually an owner of that that mutual agreement, that peace agreement. We all have a secured interest in that peace agreement, which means we all are basically stakeholders in that peace agreement. So we all have a right and authority to defend it. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's what Daniel was doing when he was down there. Danny boy, he was walking the street. He went walking up on that road. If you want to know exactly what he was doing, he was walking up there to talk to the police. You know, I mean, not necessarily in the same way as, it wasn't like the front lines at that time. It was just, there was some police gathered up on the hill off the road, and he was heading up that way to try to just talk to them and see what they would say, what's going on, you know. And obviously they weren't very friendly or receptive to that kind of thing at the time, and so they just like immediately like swarmed him with a gang of cars and told him get down on the ground, you know. So it was like him and 3 other guys, and you know, so they weren't trying to provoke anything, but they were basically exercising their right to just go walking down the road and check out what's going on. I mean, the police didn't have any right to be there. That's important for people to realize. The police did not have any. They didn't. Not only were they like abusing people, but their presence in being there was unlawful. It wasn't justified.
Right.
In other words, they're responsible. All those guys are sworn oaths to protect and defend the Constitution. The Constitution tells them that they have to defend the treaty. They know that they're in treaty territory, even though they call it Army Corps of Engineers, whatever. Okay. They know that the tribes are gathered that represent that area. There's no mystery about what's going on here, but yet they act stupid and act like, well, we think there's crimes being committed here, so we're going to go check, and we're going to bring our whole army down there and you know, just get rid of these people just in case any of them are criminals, you know what I mean? And but really it's all just, we know it's just about forcing the pipeline through. Interesting thing is they didn't admit that they were forcing the pipeline through. The police and the governor kept saying, we don't have any problem with the people peacefully gathering there. We recognize people's rights to gather and freedom of speech and all that. Right. And that's what they're trying to say that they were recognizing. But all they're doing right there is just admitting that they know the people have a right to gather there. Okay? So meanwhile, back at the fort, the reality on the ground is the pipeline has to go right through that crowd of people whose rights have just been recognized by the sheriff and the governor. So when the sheriffs and the governors are out there with their like militant army, they're there under false pretenses. They're saying that they're just trying to keep everybody safe, but what they're trying to do is force the pipeline through that crowd of people that are peacefully assembled, and they have just admitted that those people have a right to be there. So it's like there's all these false statements going on, and so basically what the way we're presenting it in the case is that everything the police were doing there was under false pretenses for criminal intentions, basically taking public funds, using them for private gain, for corporations' interest, and you know Donald Trump's political interest, and probably his financial interest.
So, just to go back to the unlawful detention of people, we did have a show where people detailed being kettled and told that they would be safe if they headed one direction, where they were just being kettled into a trap and then arrested, and all they were doing was praying. So does this lawsuit also take into account the religious freedom aspect of it
Yeah.
as well? Okay,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah, we
Hmm.
mentioned that in there also. Basically the part of that is, okay, treason. Let me just define what treason is by federal law and the U.S. Constitution. Treason is to either basically partner up with some enemies of the United States, or to wage an army to overthrow the United States, or to stop United States laws from being enforced, or from the Constitution being enforced. Okay, so how we're framing this whole entire case is all based around Donald Trump's treason and the treason of Kelsey Warren and Kyle Kirschmeyer, Alan Coffey, Doug Burgum, and then the sheriff, the DA, and the 2 governors. Anyway, so essentially what they are doing is they're using an army to overthrow the constitutionally protected rights of the people, and preventing any law enforcement or agencies that otherwise would have had authority and should be enforcing these laws. In other words, you have federally protected activities, like you said, freedom of religion. That's a federally protected activity under federal law and the Constitution. Freedom of assembly, federally protected activities, all of those things, and freedom of speech. So right there, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of religion, all 3 of those are federally protected activities, and that's a crime in itself, to use threats or intimidation or injury to prevent people from carrying out these federally protected activities. Not to be redundant, but that's a legal term anyway. But
Yes,
yeah.
and it's not only federally protected for everyone, but kind of doubly federally protected for natives, because native religion was outlawed until 1978, when they passed the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. It's sort of doubly protected there, which makes the violation of it all that much more worse, but also traumatizing in that it brings up the old wounds and traumas of people being pulled out of sweat lodges and things like that, which is how the FBI used to terrorize people on the reservation, when even as far as not so far back as the 70s. I mean, in my lifetime, this was going on. So,
cultural genocide is one of the ways used to describe that. I didn't use the term cultural genocide in the case, but I just said genocide because genocide is actually a federal crime also, which people I don't think ever get charged with, or very rarely in any case. But these guys are charged with genocide, and they should get convicted. They should get at least indicted for that, because what it means is, in other words, all their attacks and their violence in this case is used, and terrorism tactics is used to destroy a people or to break their spirit, in a sense. And that's what basically the way it's defined. I don't remember the exact words for it right now, but the way genocide is described is basically, it doesn't just mean like, oh, we went in and exterminated every person we could find of that race. It's like, and it's not just race either. It can have to do with culture or religion, or in whatever way they attack a certain class of people. So we're accusing them of full-on acts of genocide, that they are using these tactics specifically to reduce the will of the people to resist them, and in a way that to even do what they have a right to do, to assemble peacefully with their tribes out there in the field, play, sing and pray and all of those things, have their sweat lodges. So by using these terrorism tactics, they're trying to destroy the people's will and ability to do that. So that's genocide.
Right. Yes, and that's cultural genocide, exactly. And there's cultural genocide and physical genocide, and they always go together.
Yeah.
And the police are an extension of that system that seeks to destroy and eliminate all natives and all native cultural pride.
And then who's benefiting mainly? Who are the beneficiaries of all of these crimes? Are extraterritorial corporations, meaning extraterritorial means that you're not bound by any law whatsoever. Extraterritorial is a very interesting word, but in any case, these foreign multinational corporations are described as extraterritorial, which applies to their basic immunity. They have like this sovereign diplomatic immunity that's answerable to no one, and it's just the concept itself is basically a crime against humanity. You know,
Right.
it's hard for an extraterritorial corporation to not be violating people's rights, because it's like this entity that's like this like alien entity, like has no loyalty. It doesn't care about any of these treaties, any of these human rights, any of these anything, and it's untouchable. You know, so
Right. So this brings us to the eminent domain, their illegal use of eminent domain, because it's not a public service at all. It's just private money being made.
Yeah.
So these are pipelines going through American soil where we take all of the risk. And again, I will say again, it's not a matter of if these pipelines break, but when. We take all the risk. It doesn't promote energy independence at all, in any way, shape, or form. It does not create energy independence, because all this toxic petroleum products are for export. They are not for American consumption. So we take all the risk, and therefore, because they're not for American consumption, they do not have the right to use eminent domain, because it's not for American consumption. It is for private profit only.
Right. Yes.
So, yeah.
Especially for private profit, and it's crime. Well, obviously, you know, there's, you know, the sheriff, the governor, they all have their own personal stake in it, even if it's just their, you know, their attitude or their opinion, or, you know, I'm sure a lot of people just have racist motivations, and they're just, you know, hey, we don't want to have to listen to these complaining people that say it's their territory. You know, all the stuff about it being treaty territory seems to really get people riled up who are, you know, I don't know, prejudiced, basically racist. You know, it's the whole idea that you can have treaty territory when the government says it's Army Corps of Engineers. It's like there's a sort of a social political divide right there, where some people just don't think you should have special rights. Like they see it as like you're asking for special privileges as native people from this area, and you know you shouldn't have any special rights. You should be treated just like everybody else. You know, and that's so there's definitely some like kind of sociological barriers that we have there with some people.
So,
you know.
What's the flip side reality then of that? It's not really a special right, actually, to be native. It's more of a burden. Everything that you do is governed by an alphabet soup of federal agencies, right?
Yeah.
So natives have to register. It's looked at as a sovereignty issue with your tribe or tribes, but really it's just a methodology by which the government tracks their policy of breed them out of existence. So that's what blood quantum law is about.
Yes. I think it's I think to me it's an inheritance issue. It's inherent, you know, inherent rights, inheritance rights. You know, everyone has human rights to themselves, you know, to be not beaten up or attacked, or, you know, something violate, you know, your personal space being violated. But there's also another thing that has to do with inheritance. And, you know, basic, very common law anywhere around that you see in modern American society, people expect to be able to inherit, you know, property from their parents. If their parents had land, they expect to inherit that land. And it's just absolutely ridiculous to think that you can't expect that you could expect the native people from the area that their ancestors are from to not have inheritance rights in those lands, even if it's a slightly different version of how the land management or land use is under modern, you know, society. It's
right.
It's a slap in the face. It's just an insult, and it's just wrong. You can't just take the land and then just say, sorry guys, you know, there was a thing that happened in the past, you know, it was conquest and whatever, and your claims don't matter anymore, you know, because that's not what it is under, you know, Constitution, federal law, and everything else. Your lands cannot be taken from you, okay? And the fact that it was Indian land was recognized multiple times, And it's just a useless argument to try to say, the natives don't deserve any special rights. The government said it's Army land. Why don't we all just listen to the government? It's a crime. You don't listen to the government when the government is starting to be run by people who are using the government offices to rob you of your rights. That's it. That's how I was. That's simple. The native people got robbed of their rights. So anybody who says that they have special privileges just doesn't get the fact that, no, they just have a little bit of some kind of piece of crap compensation for all the stuff that's been robbed from them. And I'm also native, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, just as a general concept across the board, I'm not from a reservation. I don't have any special Indian rights or anything like that. I'm just sticking up for what is right, in general.
Right. Yeah. So, we did get some questions about whether you were native or not. And you're a mixed relative.
Yeah. My mom is, yes, my mom's from Lenape tribe and Powhatan tribe from the East Coast, from upstate New York and from Virginia. And she's from really old family, colonizers too, a lot of European colonizers. Obviously most of my ancestors came over here on boats from Europe and stuff. But yeah.
So the listeners not all the listeners really have an idea of the complexity of Indian law and how it really divides families by its very nature. So you have federally recognized tribes, you have state recognized tribes, and you have unrecognized tribes. And then you have mixed, relatives, and you have some people that are all of that. So in terms of identity gets all mixed up in this, in Indian law, blood quantum law, and then also Indian land trust law. So to go back to your concept of it being a slap in the face for people to argue that natives are getting special rights for wanting their treaties to be honored for once. That no, like I'm just reiterating what you said. No, actually, we're expecting to our birthright, just like you expect your birthright, and so it's not a special privilege for us to expect our birthright, because
even if it was robbed from you, but even if it was robbed from you 3 generations ago, it was robbed. You know what I mean? There's enough evidence of it that it was robbed. The treaty still stands, and nobody got legal title. You know what I mean? If there's 2 or 3 generations that, were holding on to your robbed, stolen property, and you're still alive and you're still there, you still have a right to it. And especially if you never relinquish that right. That's the point. It's like somebody can argue that you lost your rights if you sort of gave them up or you stopped saying that they were your rights. But the native people never stopped saying that these were their rights. They never stopped saying that our lands were stolen. It never stopped.
Right.
So
and that's what
was never given up.
That's what the term unceded treaty territory means, that that the people never signed away or gave up their right to that land. It was simply stolen after the treaties were written, not before, after the treaties were written. Once they discover there's gold or there's oil or there's something they want, they take it anyway. And every single treaty that has been agreed to between the tribes and the United States has been violated. Absolutely every one. So that's not special rights, not by a long shot.
And there is a reason why there's some relevance to the treaty still, and that is because, ironically, out of all this, the tribes are arguably still at peace with the settlers. You could say, well, you got conquered or whatever, but really, in reality, no. They surrendered. They wanted peace, and the tribes accepted peace and stopped fighting for their survival, because they're getting attacked and threatened and everything. But that's not to be taken for granted. It's not to be taken for granted that these were people who were fighting to protect their lands, and they were fighting to the death, and they stopped fighting so that we could all have peace. And we all need to respect that, and we need to go back to honoring the parties to the treaty on all sides. Yeah.
Right. And we also, the average American really needs to take a really deep look at Indian law land trust and blood quantum law, and how it is designed to fail the people. Reservations are prisoner of war camps, always have been, always will be. The design of Indian land trust law is to pit people against each other, because you have a situation where when people were rounded up and forced onto reservations, not allowed to leave by law, and guess what the punishment was if you did? You were shot on sight if you left.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's not like, that's not special
Absolutely.
rights, people, at all.
No.
It's
It was an
going
agenda.
from, going from this large territory where you lived in harmony and you roamed free and you hunted and you gathered, to this tiny little space where you can't live like your people have always lived. It's impossible. And then you're dependent on these rations that are basically poison. So that's where fry bread comes out of. It's lard and flour basically was all the people had to eat, and that's survival food. But it's also, not, there's no nutrition in it, so it's not thrival food. It's not going to make you thrive, and it's not what your ancestors ate. So
it also messes with your brain. Eating just a whole bunch of flour like that is actually one of the techniques of breaking down prisoners' minds and stuff like that. Like, just having just a high starch diet like that is definitely
bread and water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So there's all kinds of levels to the genocide, and all kinds of techniques to it. And we need to also look at Standing Rock as the army being turned internally against the United States people. That's exactly what it is. If you look at all of the army equipment that was used against the people, your LRADs, your tanks, your tear gas, all of that stuff is the anti-riot stuff is used on people in war. And to use that against an unarmed group of people who are praying it's beyond unconscionable. It's a total crime against humanity, all of humanity, not just the people that it happened to, but all of humanity. That's allowed to happen. And then the same government is saying that Syria's gassed their people, so we're going to bomb the shit out of them. Well, with using that logic, other countries have the right to bomb America now for gassing their own people. Same logic.
Yeah,
right?
Well, hopefully no one thinks, I'm sure some people do think that. And obviously Kyle Kirschmeyer and the governor and all those guys really feel like what they did was, or at least they feel like they can get away with it and justify it based on some kind of logic. And basically their whole thing is, well, we're just looking out for the people's safety. Every single time they made these big orders, which were fraudulent false claims, they were claiming to be looking out for the people. So they at least know where the money's coming from, because the money's coming from the people. The people are the creditors for the entire operation. We the people, we're the ones that back that whole entire thing, the persecution against us. So did we mean to back it, or did we really authorize it, or did it just get robbed from us and used against us? It's what the whole legal question is here, and it definitely was an armed robbery. They had armies of, heavily armed, brutal forces brought in, whoever would do the dirty work for overtime, And that's another thing. They used the overtime to bribe public officials, so it's bribing public officials. That's one of the charges in there. All the overtime is going to get all of these guys to go and keep their mouth shut so they can get money for their families for Christmas.
And they used emergency management law, where law enforcement can borrow people from other states to recruit the most racist cops they could. Come beat up on natives. It's open season.
I think there was a lot of that. But I guess maybe I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt. But I think that I think a huge percentage of those guys, if not most of them, were just there mainly for the overtime, and they're just figuring, I'm just going to stand there and be security, and and hold the line or whatever. I mean, I don't think they necessarily all were like, let's go kick some natives' ass. Like, it was, they tell the guys all this stuff that, you're going to come out there and keep the peace. And they tell them, just like they're announcing in the public announcements, that we respect the people's right to peacefully protest, but they can't break the law. And then they just start telling them what the law is. The law is they can't stand over here. The law is they can't walk over on this road. The law is, you know what I mean? And so they start thinking of it like traffic cops, and they're going to start directing things. But where they're really wrong in a huge way there is you don't come in and start acting like a traffic cop when you have a massive assembly of people peacefully assembled. That's not the time for traffic cops to come in and start basically slowing down and interfering with things, much less intimidating people, spraying them with pepper spray, hitting them with billy clubs. None of that stuff is authorized by even their own claims of what they say they're there for. Like, we're there to keep the peace. We're there to see if there's any criminals, and the whole thing is
right.
They never even gave a justification that would explain why they're attacking the people. They didn't actually say, we have an emergency, there's a riot. That wasn't how they did it. They actually said, there's a bunch of people peacefully protested there and we want to protect them. Like, believe it or not, those police were there under false pretenses to protect you. That's what a lot of people don't realize.
Directly, the police did directly say to people who were there praying, they called it a riot. And then just proceeded to attack them. So they would roll up in a tank to a group of people praying, say, you're rioting, and then begin to attack them. So they did that on the individual level.
Totally did use the rioting thing. I'm saying they did definitely say it was rioting, but what I'm trying to say is they were not calling the whole thing a riot. They were saying that they're saying some people there are rioting. That's their whole justification is, we have nothing against a peaceful assembly. We have nothing against the religious assembly. Well, if you have nothing against the religious assembly, why are you dragging people out of sweat lodges and burning their sweat lodges then?
Right.
So that's why I'm just saying they're caught. They're totally caught with with that, because there's no rioters inside the sweat lodge. You know what I mean? There's no rioters in the teepees. The teepees aren't being used for a riot.
Right.
Why are you burning teepees? Why are you bulldozing teepees? Why are you throwing all the elders in the kennels? Are all the elders rioting? So I'm if anybody's going to send in affidavits, to support the case, I would say the best things that you could show is peaceful people, just like you're describing, peaceful people religiously assembled, expressing their freedom of speech, and just getting attacked as if they were rioting when they're not in any way, shape, or form rioting or even pushing at the police. I mean, those certain days especially when they raided the camp.
Right.
What?
We're just about to go to a break, but stick around and stay on the line. See if you can mute your microphone once you hear the music, and then we'll be back in 5 minutes or so. We should be going to break any second now. Oh, one more minute. So,
thanks, Kira.
You bet. So did you want Owl to come in the second hour, or do you want us to try to get him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Owl was there in Washington helping to report these crimes. So it would be love to hear his witness on that.
All right. So stick around, everybody. We're going to take a little break for some station bumpers, and we'll be back. Stick around. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Bridge with Kira. It's the second hour on 4/29/17. It's 5 p.m. Eastern, and we're continuing our conversation with Dunn Eggink, who is talking about this federal case, which against the United States government, detailing the human rights violations, among other crimes that happened at Standing Rock. So are you still there, Dunn?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you really good. We are going to try to add Owl to the call and see what happens.
Okay.
Hopefully we can get him. I haven't had any like prior contact, or I don't know. Does he know we're going to try to
Oh,
call him?
he said he was trying to call in, yeah, and I just sent you his phone number. So
Okay. All right.
Oh, that number you give me isn't working. I guess
Oh.
you'll have to add it, Kira.
Oh, I will? Okay. Let me see if I
Yeah,
can do
the last time when you added Dan, I was able to click on it and call him. So
Okay. All
I'll
right,
click
let's
on
give that a try. So it's the one that you sent me, Dunn? The
yeah,
phone
on the
number, the
Facebook
70.
message, yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Um, Here we go. Let me give it a try. Stand by, everyone. We're just going to add somebody.
Yeah. Thanks. And I just wanted to introduce him. Owl was with my dad in Washington, D.C. for a couple of months, staying there and reporting these crimes that have been committed at Standing Rock by the law enforcement, people acting as law enforcement, but it's really a standing army to commit crimes. So I'm glad that Owl wants to call in and say hi.
Let's see. Oh, okay.
So you
Again,
were out there for a while too, weren't you, Kira, at Standing Rock?
I was, yeah. I was there for the first couple of weeks of November.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Was that what wasn't it? It was in November when one of the really bad raids happened, when a lot of really heavy violence against the people in the camps, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was. Well, it was the 27th of October is when they raided the treaty camp, and so that was the one that was put directly in the pipe, in the pipeline's path, and it was treaty land, and so that's the one where they really took people down violently and pulled them out of sweat lodges and burned things and beat people up. So it was just before I arrived there that had happened, and then right after I left was when they sprayed people in 20-degree weather with the water cannon and blew up people's arms and things like that.
Yeah,
I think I'm
that's the one my dad was there during
Kira.
that.
Yeah? You think
I
you
think
got
I'm
it?
on.
Do you have that other? If you have the other number that you want him to call in, if you could send it to me through Facebook message, and I'll send it over to him or something.
Okay, hey, we might have him.
He's in
Hey,
now.
Owl, is that you?
Oh, okay.
Hoo-hoo, how are you?
Good. Welcome to the bridge. I have Dunn here with me, and we've been talking about the lawsuit for the past hour. So we thought we'd add you.
Listening.
You've been listening?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So please do introduce yourself and tell us your connection to all this.
Excuse me. Hello, my name is MC Owl. I'm a peculiar person of pragmatic persuasion and profound, proficient, phenomenal alliteration. And I met Danny Boy, Dunn's father, who has this criminal complaint in for the men behind the Dakota Access Pipeline back at New Year's. I was there pretty much the whole winter at Standing Rock, and so was Danny Boy. When I met him, he was dying of pneumonia, and then I saw him again a couple weeks later when I came back up for a third trip, and he was starting to begin work on like summoning a grand jury in the lowest level in Mandan, North Dakota, and was beginning like going around to different federal agencies, making FaceTime with the agents in charge. Like I know he went to the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And these are the guys who did most of the arresting and yada, 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 yada. Like he went to their superintendent, Sheila White Mountain, and was like informing her of all the crimes happening and all kinds of stuff. And so we were not able to get any attention from any level of court in North Dakota. We went to Fort Yates, Bismarck, and Morton County, and they all kind of ignored us because the judicial corruption is apparently throughout the whole state. And then after the Standing Army came, we booked our tickets on Amtrak and we went right to D.C. So I don't know, was that March 21st or so when the Army came and bulldozed everybody?
Yep.
And we got tickets to Washington, D.C. on Amtrak, and we arrived the night of Danny Boy's birthday, I think. And
What was that? What was Danny's birthday?
March 5th.
Is it March? Yeah. Okay,
March
so
5th is his birthday.
The
Okay.
bulldozing happened in February. We went there March 5th. We had to sleep in the bushes because we were on a guerrilla mission to file criminal complaints in the courts against the president and the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
So we were there for a whole month, living off the graces of PayPal and you caring and anyone who's just been tracking us, because we were bumbling around in the Standing Rock for a while, doing our best to educate everyone who was arrested about case law. So because of the treaty territory, subject matter jurisdiction can never be proven in the areas in which the people were arrested because of a loyal title and eminent domain and all that law stuff. So the law states that when a people in trial challenges the court's jurisdiction, then the court has to prove right then and there on the record that it has jurisdiction over the subject matter.
And they can't do that?
Because it's Great Sioux Nation territory.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no signs of trespassing and blah, blah, blah. It was all prosecutorial misconduct. Conspiracy with Kelsey Warren. All the governors and the sheriff. Kelsey Warren, back when all this first started with the dogs being sent to maul on people, he was yeah, it's going to happen no matter what. And he was trying to pay the Morton County for all their expenses. Then the governors and the higher ups decided no, we're not going to take that money because it'd be too obvious. We're going to, pillage the people of the United States and use our offices to, emergency funds and blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And so even before we went to D.C., we were spending a good month and a half creating a law firm called Standing Rock Lawful. And we were doing our best to gather as many water protectors as we could to teach them, hey, subject matter jurisdiction can't be proven. And here are two guys who have proven the defense right here before you. There was another man who did the same thing as Danny Boy and challenged the court's jurisdiction. However, he was a little more belligerent in his behavior, and he was put in contempt of court for challenging the court and then put in solitary confinement for 19 days. And then Alan Coppy, one of the defendants in this case, he's a state attorney, after 19 days of calling saying, hey, you guys have no jurisdiction, and the cops torturing him in the jail and putting him in solitary, the state attorney was oh shit, you're right, we don't, and they let him out. And that was a smoking gun for Alan Coppy's treason. So in our brief that we filed, we were in D.C., we went to the Supreme Court right away. That was our first goal, because this is the Supreme Court case, period. It has all the federal elements. It's dealing with the president. There's already been precedent with Aaron Burr and yada, 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 yada. So we went there. We started, hooting around, found out that there's anonymous workers making judicial determinations about filings. Because, we demanded from the clerk, we need to see a judge. This is an emergency. We see him right now. It's the Constitution. The Supreme Court is the supreme law of the land. This is the place to be. We started in the lowest court. We exposed the corruption there. We went to the federal court, and now we're here in D.C. Serve us. And we had all this mail tampering happening. We delivered the mail 6 times, and it still never got to the Honorable Scott Harris, to my knowledge, because a manager of the clerk's office came out, and he was yeah, this case isn't appropriate. And I asked him, who are you? And he wouldn't tell me his name. That's a violation of his oath of office to be there. He's I'll give you my card. He never gave me his card. And then eventually we decided, okay, well, the Supreme Court is compromised. We went to the U.S. District Court, the federal court there on Constitution Avenue, and we sent the mail, and they got it right away. The first time we called in, and I talked to a clerk there, and he's yeah, your mail's here. However, you need to do some adjustments. And so we went there the next week, and the clerk helped us with how to file this correctly. Even the day that we did it, the final day we were in D.C., the clerk was still helping us file it correctly. We had to write out some things and add a couple more pages and organize things correctly and yada, yada, yada. And then we paid the money, and he sealed, like, he filed it, and he gave us a case number and all that stuff. And so that court right there was actually our friend.
So now it's legit.
Yeah, the case number, and he actually chose the judge for us too. If you look on the case, her name is Tanya Chutnick, and she made, earlier this election season, she made a judicial order for the committee to reevaluate their rules for the third-party candidates because they robbed Jill Stein and Gary Johnson of any chance in the election. And so this judge, she's an African-American lady, and she doesn't appear to have any ties to the cronies.
Interesting.
Yeah, she's born in Jamaica. She was born in Kingston, Jamaica.
All right, so we'll have a little Rastafarian prayer ceremony before the.
Yeah, come on.
We're praying that the republic still exists. And it does. That's how we have all these. Because the government, when it works right, is great. I've been indigent and in forma pauperis since Standing Rock, and I just got a food stamp card instantly. And getting on the bus and all this stuff. The services of the government are great. However, the ones in charge are treasonous and a danger.
That's unfortunate.
To the threat.
So this could go somewhere now that it's a legitimate case. And I'm sorry, say that again. Did you want to?
No, I was trying to see if Danny Boy was going to talk, but his hearing is not good enough, and he just doesn't want to, sit here and try to struggle to hear the phone. So,
okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
But if there's anything he reminds you of that he wants to be part of the conversation.
Oh yeah, he's gonna want the world to know that. So there was an operation called Operation Greylord that happened in Illinois a couple of
Greylord. Greylord?
Operation Greylord. Yeah, it was untrained undercover agents exposing the biggest criminal enterprise in Chicago. And it was happened over a couple of years, wiretapping judges' chambers, undercover guys taking bribes, making friends with guys they would turn on. Mm-hmm. And so Danny Boy and I did an Operation Thunderbird Boogie for a month in Washington, D.C. because we went to all levels of government. We got picked up by U.S. Capitol Police special agents, and they interviewed us the Matrix style, Agent Smith and Neo.
Oh wow!
Who are you? What are you doing? And blah 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 blah. And we told them yo, we're here to arrest the president. We're witnesses to the overt act of treason committed by all these guys. And they interviewed us an hour each, and they cleared us. And then we were just bumbling around, going to congressmen. We went to Al Franken. John McCain, and we gave them the amicus curiae brief, the Supreme Court case, and we're yo, we're here accusing these guys of treason, and did you know you're guilty of misprision of treason if you don't report this? We went to congressmen. We actually spent an hour and a half inside the North Dakota Congressman Kramer. We were in his office, and his whole crew came out and we're videotaping us, and we were telling them about yo, we're here to arrest your governor. We're here to accuse the sheriff of treason. Here's subject matter jurisdiction. We gave them the whole case. We kind of explained here's the law, and they were all recording us. His whole office. They're from North Dakota, and the kicker is that congressman, he's pro DAPL. He voted for the pipeline and all that stuff.
Of course, yes, they all are.
And we were right there, talking to them. So a Thunderbird Boogie is a operation by two American clowns, Danny Boy and MC Owl, as we were delivering a federal arrest warrant for the president and other men, and it's a live musical. And so he's one of his dreams he's been planning for his whole life is to make a production called Thunderbird Boogie. And so this last month in April was a recording of our attempts. And so if you look at our Facebook pages, you'll see that we have videos of us at the Supreme Court, at the Congress videos, and we're doing live musical street theater because we had to, for our protection, be funny. Otherwise, you're like locked up for being crazy, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
You can follow those videos on Standing Rock Waffle Facebook page. Anyone who wants to join and keep up with updates on that.
Standing Rock Lawful.
Yeah,
it's a
Standing
Facebook
Rock
page.
Waffle Facebook.
It has,
Okay. The
all
like
the
page?
It's
Is that a
Facebook
like page? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has
Okay.
it has, if anyone wants to like see how the story progressed, it started all the way back like in February when we were still in North Dakota, and like videos of us going to courthouses. Like even I served some stuff on Kyle Kirchmeyer's car. Like we warned everyone the whole time we were coming, like, hey, we're coming to get you, and we accuse you of treason. And like we called the senator
Definitely.
and the congressman and the police, and like we let them know like before we showed up, like, hey, we're coming, we're the people, and we're here to accuse these guys of treason. And like there was no sneaking up on anybody. And few times we came out of the Congress building, they would have like an army of cops waiting for us with like machine guns.
Wow.
And Danny Boy and I, we just walked past them like just singing and dancing. And Danny Boy is like really well versed in some of the Jesuit and trainings, and he can like identify undercover agents pretty easily. And we were tracked by FBI agents and CIA agents, and they're all following us, you know, because a lot of the programming that cops have, their Manchurianism is, you know, we're all, the terrorists are us and not the ones that they're protecting, you know.
Right, and they definitely have like this out of the matrix type of you know, mannerisms and things like that. The black suits and the, you know, sunglasses and stuff like that. They stand out pretty heavily. Let me ask you something. You guys coming back to DC?
Oh, I think we're gonna have to.
Yep.
We're waiting to hear from the courts. Like as soon as they summon us or subpoena us, I'm there.
Okay.
So I think
so
they have to subpoena.
Keep us abreast of that situation. Let us know when you're coming back. I'm not too far from DC, so I can support the effort, do some live streaming, and
that sounds great.
We'll get this clown show going.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Kira, for broadcasting about this and everything, and giving us some time to share this. It's really important, and it's new. So you know, you're right on the cutting edge of getting this word out about this case. It could have a really big effect if this indictment comes through. So everything is in place for it. And
I'd like to reiterate that you guys listen to all my past shows. They're on my blog, Psychopaths in Charge, which is at www.kyoung4.wordpress.com. You can also just Google Kira Young, Psychopaths in Charge, and you'll come up with it. I documented water protector stories from August forward on this show. So a lot of those water protectors could easily be contacted to be part of this suit and participate in it. Yeah, and we have historical record. We have live broadcasts, recordings of live broadcasts for historical records, and it may give you some ideas because as you were talking about the different charges, I could think of quite a few individual incidences that support each one of your claims that you were talking earlier.
Thank you. I'm sure you can, Kira. Yes, thank you. And that way, it's very helpful. It's not just just like chanting and waving signs. This is like we have criminal charges. There's going to be a real grand jury looking at this. And if anybody wants to press charges against these guys, look at the charges that we already put. It's going to be up on the internet at Eggink versus Trump. And if you agree with those charges, you can contribute and you can submit your own affidavit with that case number and add your weight to the allegation. And this
coming Wednesday, I will. Sorry, go ahead, Al.
It's imperative that all the people, we rise up, and wherever you are in your own district court, start addressing the ignorance of the law, because a lot of these guys, they really just don't know, because the systematic brainwashing has been happening for hundreds of years. Like if you went there and were civil with the bailiffs and the whatever, and you start educating them, it works. And so it's really important for all the types of law that's happening, that the people go into the courts and start trying to heal the situation, like bringing forth their own cases, bringing cases for other people, or even just educating their friends, like, hey, like you can go do this all yourself, and like helping them. And it's just really, really important that all levels of courts across the whole country, that people start going into them and not be afraid anymore.
Because they're really supposed to be our courts. And we have the right to say, hey, look, you listen to the law on this, but you're not listening to it here. That's revealing a prejudice. We have the right to say that. We also have the right to say that this law on the books is bullshit. It protects nobody except for the elite. For instance, the marijuana laws on the books are, racist, and basically give the so-called criminal justice system the right to steal people's homes and separate families and imprison people for doing nothing to hurt anyone. So,
right.
We have the right to say that. We have the right to say that we don't agree with this. Yeah. This is not helping anyone at all.
That's right.
Anyone who's been really interested in this stuff, look up what a private attorney general is, because the reason why a lot of these cases just never get heard or even tried is because the ones who are supposed to, the bar lawyers that have the highest power, they don't want to. Like, Danny Boy is a 79-year-old man, and he had to go travel from Washington, D.C. and bumble around all the courts in North Dakota because no lawyer or law firm would have taken this case. So it's really imperative for the people to start learning how to be a private attorney general and taking cases and prosecuting people themselves.
Right, and this would be different from what people might, or would it? I'm asking. Okay, would this be different from what people might classify as legalese?
No,
legalese is just jargon. Yeah. Legalese is just like the language. It's like the lingo of lawyers and stuff like that. You don't need to get too much into all that, really. It's not necessary. If you're dealing with lawyers and judges sometimes, but most of the language that people really need to use in the law is right in the Constitution.
Okay.
That's my short answer.
Yeah. Because there's other types of movements going on, sovereignty movements and things like that, people might associate what you guys are doing with, for instance, birth certificate stuff, you're registering your child as a corporation or whatever with the, people would associate that, but you're just actually more basic than that. You're just saying we actually have the laws on the books to challenge this and move forward and try to change things and reverse things.
The commerce law stuff is important. It's important to understand, the relationship of how the courts, the way they view people as being accounts. Each person is a holder of an account, and it's going to be a bunch of negotiations are going to go down in each court case of how these accounts are managed. And so that is relevant for people I recommend that people study commerce law if they have the time and they have the interest in doing it, to look up the UCC code online and start with secured transactions. Start in that section and just start reading about what a secured interest is, what a secured creditor is, and things like that, because and I'll just give you basically the short intro to the code is basically your secured interest is the same thing as your rights. So, if you have rights to something, secured interest is like your ownership rights. It's you're a stakeholder. Every person who lives on this continent is a stakeholder in the U.S. Constitution, whether or not they are indigenous or immigrant, or if they're just visiting, illegal immigrant or whatever people want to call it. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with
also most
the Constitution is evidence. Yeah. So the Constitution is evidence of rights. The Constitution is not the source of your rights. The Constitution helps to prove your rights. It's just another example of, you could use the UN Declaration of Human Rights and things like that also, But human rights are inherent. They just come with, being a human being and what's right,
So let's just shift the conversation a little bit here, because I would like to get your opinions about this. Right now, today, we've got this climate march going on in D.C. How effective do you think that's going to be compared to bringing a lawsuit? Like, how effective do you think these two
marches?
methodologies for addressing our grievances with the government?
If they were used in tandem, they can be very effective. The marches can definitely help to. I don't know how to explain it, but I guess, judges and everything are not insulated. They do see the media and they do see what's going on in the world around them. So everything has an effect. There's nothing wrong with them, opening the window and looking outside and seeing a big march going on.
But it has to be backed up by actions like yours, or it has not as much of an effect as it could.
When we were in D.C., we saw a couple marches too, like Women's March and the Water Protector March. And what Dunn said, I agree with. However, it's a very broad message. And so when we were there, I was trying to get the water protectors to head over to the Supreme Court. And if you had a big group like that lobbying the Congress or to Supreme Court instead of just walking the streets.
Right.
And
right about that.
Taking care of bureaucracy, then you do a lot more damage to the nature.
Go inside the building. Yeah, take the march inside the building. I agree, Al. I'm going to second that motion. Take the march inside. Everybody go through the security guards. Take it inside. And spend as much time as you can inside the building.
Was that the U.S. Department of Agriculture is taken over by an extraterritorial corporation, and the workers who work in the bottom are private security. They're not the same as the ones that we saw in all the other federal buildings in D.C. So, if you brought that climate change march over to the USDA and exposed that an extraterritorial corporation is running that place, then that would be hella amazing, instead of just hanging out in front of the White House saying science trumps religion or whatever. Yeah, I'm all about tree hugging and doing that stuff. However, there's sharper methodology, going inside and filing lawsuits or lobbying the specific individuals you want to, instead of just shouting out to the heavens.
Right. And
one thing I want to say here about that, just link this in, what the people did at Standing Rock made this case possible. We would not have the case that we have if the people did not go there and do exactly what you were saying, peacefully assembling, voicing their freedom of speech, and being at the right place at the right time, and just throwing all their passion and dedication and commitment into that, and just it grew, and that would happen at Standing Rock, and to me it's still happening. It didn't end. That is very significant, and without that we would not have this case. So this case is we're the enforcers of essentially the convention of nations that gathered at Standing Rock. We're enforcing their decree because this case has already been decided. The people decided. The nations came together. There was all kinds of ceremonies and rituals and passing feathers and agreements going on, and veterans coming and apologizing for the colonization of this country. The people officially forgiving them. Many tribes that have had feuds for hundreds of years came together and exchanged gifts and hugs and friendship and shared meals. So we're enforcing that. We're saying that's the law. That's the supreme law. Enough of the bullshit. We're going into federal court to say this court doesn't stand unless we recognize that court. We have a peace treaty. Both things have to stand on equal footing, like the two-row wampum belt, the two canoes going down the river. I won't mess with your canoe. You don't mess with my canoe. That's the only way we can have peace. They can't force, Native people to just be treated like criminals when they're having an international assembly. The people decided to have an international assembly to stop the pipeline. Case closed. The decision's already made. The people who had the best right to decide what goes on that land came together and made the decision. It's already decided. It's out of the jurisdiction of Obama, Department of Justice, Army Corps of Engineers, Trump, anybody. It's out of their area. It's none of their business what happens in that territory. The people have decided. There's no confusion about it. It doesn't matter what Dapple Dave Archibald says. It's not up to him. It's not his. It doesn't matter whether he thinks that people should go home for the holidays or not. That's irrelevant. An international assembly happened there. The peacekeepers came. The water protectors came. Environmentalists came. even the
The
radical,
Palestinians came. I mean, a lot
every,
of
yeah,
people
you know what I mean?
came.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone was there. Monks were there. Rabbis, pastors, everything.
Yeah. Church groups came and said, "We're sorry," you know, and said, "Good, thank you for that," you know. But
Swamis and yogis and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the Constitution has to recognize that. That's the whole point of the reason why there is freedom of assembly and freedom of speech, and to, you know, some of the state constitutions even get a little bit more detailed of explaining what the people assemble freely for. It's to address the common good, the common need. The people gather together. It's like a community get together, and they decide, and that's it. That's the government. There's no more government goes beyond that. Everything else is some private security interest marching up over the hill with an army, and they have to be arrested for that. They've totally violated all of us. You know?
Yeah.
I'm not into arresting
citizens march and doing citizens arrests. Clean the swamp ourselves. Let's organize one of those.
Right, because clearly.
Yeah. Okay.
Citizens arrest, clear the swamp in D.C., get all the senators and congressmen.
Well, clearly your approach got some attention, given the alphabet soup that greeted you as you left the Capitol. So when you go back, I'm sure you'll be greeted in a similar fashion. I
called the special agent. I've been in semi-regular contact with the agents throughout our trip since they picked us up. And so when we filed it, I called him a couple days later. I was like, "Hey, Agent Andrew Crow, do you remember MC Owl?" He's like, "Yeah, what's up, MC Owl?" I was like, "Hey, you know, all those domestic enemies I told you about, we filed the lawsuit in the court." She's like, "Oh, wait, great job. Way to go. Let me know when you're back in Vegas." So there's like a lot of really good people. Or back in D.C., there's a lot of really good people. And even while we were filing the cases, like some of the Department of Justice guys were trailing us, like, watch us, the real good oath takers, to make sure we were safe. And so there's a lot of good amongst the evil in Washington, D.C., for sure. Because all those cops and stuff that are on the Capitol Hill, those are the best of the best, like the nicest types. Old ex-Marines and yada, 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 yada. They just don't know that they were, you know, groomed to be there so they would, because they could be controlled as wage slaves and yada, yada, yada.
I want to say also, everybody, Kira, you, everybody who was everyone who was there, especially at Standing Rock, you're all under, you know, official right now. You're under all federal witness protection program right now because, first of all, you're a secured interest owner of the whole, you know, Constitution because it's evidence of your natural inalienable rights. And essentially, you're all reporting a crime. That's part of what the Standing Rock Water Protectors thing was about, was reporting that this extraterritorial corporation is committing crimes and invading and using soldiers under color of law to rob the people. So you were reporting a crime, Kira. You were there. You've been on the radio reporting this thing. Everyone has been reporting this thing. It's you know, in every way that we can. And like you said, there's environmental marches are going to be going out. I'm sure a lot of people marching there feel like it's a crime what he's talking about, you know, lifting up all environmental protections and letting the rivers get, you know, polluted again and everything else, you know. So just, you know, let's just own it, you know, and not like just try not to think too negative. And I'm not like trying to give the Masons or anything like that any kind of props like they're going to save us or anything like that, because obviously there's been an agenda of genocide against all of us, you know. So I'm just saying is that, like, look, let's just own the whole realm of law. Like I said, the decision was already made there by the tribes. Let's empower the clan mothers. Let's raise up the clan mothers and the elders and the chiefs and you know, establish real government by the people. And the United States has to abide by that and recognize that. Otherwise, we will just start governing ourselves and we'll just do it better. You know, we'll just go back to, you know, Turo Wampum again.
Right. Yeah, and to get back to this army being used against the American people, if you look at their anti-riot techniques that they responded with when there wasn't a riot, that's code on the domestic level for anti-insurgent. So you can actually look in the Army manual for their anti-insurgent techniques, and you could find the MO and the techniques that were used against the people at Standing Rock. They're straight out of the Army's anti-insurgent manual. Right
The
out of
funny
there.
thing about this whole case is that like the courts are kind of operating under like a pseudo admiralty law right now, the law of the merchant. And so the funny thing is that like this case should be a real, true military tribunal against these guys. With all the language against them. Yeah, because they're all, Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief of the whole military-industrial complex of the Empire of Three Cities, like the face, So he definitely should be at a military tribunal courtroom. Actually use the admiralty law against him instead of the people. But we'll see. Who knows? All this stuff's in God's hand because I don't know anyone's listening. If there's any non-believers out there, the mission that Danny Boy and I accomplished was nothing short from the grace of God, because we were right there in the Empire of Three Cities with no money, and every day that we needed something, the walk-in for the provider gave it to us. And even the last day we were there, the daughter of Madonna, the woman who started the whole movement for the water protectors at Sacred Stone Camp, she called us and was like, "Hey, I've been watching you guys. I have the money for your case filing." And so she wired us the money to file the case. And then immediately afterwards, after we filed the case, one of our friends got our emergency extraction back to California. And it was all by the grace of God. Danny Boy and I were there for a whole month. We had no money because the day before we filed, we were sleeping in the bushes again. We had run out of money, and we had nowhere to go, and we were still trying to file this stuff. And then boom, 2 angels came and got us out of there with the money for the case and a ticket out of DC. And so our whole experience was just this is a mission from God. So we're seeing now it's all up into that realm. So we're just waiting.
It's divine intervention
to do our stuff.
I hope you're wearing your dark
whole thing.
Sunglasses.
Yeah.
I hope you're wearing your
I
sunglasses.
think it was all were you wearing your sunglasses for all the bright lights?
And on your mission from God, with your, and hopefully you were.
Blues Brothers.
Yeah,
the funny thing is when I
pack
first
of
met Danny, I was
cigarettes.
polarized against him. When I first met Danny at Standing Rock, I thought he was just a crazy old man. And then after a couple months, I was like, yo, wait, he's right. This is treason. And he's trying to summon a grand jury. And I was like, fuck, I really misjudged him at first.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So, we were an unlikely pair, and we did the mission because both of our skills, his age and my talents with social media and stuff, we really balanced each other out, and we're able to just be a 2-man guerrilla operation with an option for a coup for anybody who's an oath taker to this country. Here's your coup, treason.
Right.
Let the system work.
So they are right in the sense that it is an insurgency.
Yep.
Yeah. Standing Rock is an insurgency.
Well, I want to say though, what the Constitution is talking about and everything, when they're talking about treason, what Trump did and all those, basically the militarized police from back in August, that was an insurrection. It's that's all the mind games, is they try to trick people into thinking that if you don't obey the people that are wearing the uniforms and have the badges and guns, then you're the rebel. But that's not always the case. Sometimes the rebels are real criminals, and they're not just people fighting for freedom. It's there's real criminals out there that are trying to just use those positions to just get their own way, and they're the ones that are the rebels against real law. They're the rebels against real law, natural law, and the Constitution and all that stuff can be used to protect those laws in the sense of just knowing it. I can never guarantee what a judge or a court is going to do, but I mean, there's definitely some truth to the Constitution. It's not about standing on colonialism or anything like that.
Right. It's about, it goes back to the beginning of the show when we were talking about expecting your birthright. So not only the birthright of indigenous people of this land, in terms of land claims and homeland and treaties, but everybody's birthright not to be poisoned for profit.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, like fuck us, right? For demanding that.
Right. You rowdy rebels. You don't want to be poisoned? What? Come on now. And
Yeah.
so we have the right to
It all
continue.
stems from a controlled currency, but that's another story.
Right.
We're working on each issue as they go.
They are all connected, though. That's the thing. They intersect at various points on this confusing web, and that's by design. It's supposed to confuse people so they don't understand. Yeah. It's supposed to overwhelm people so that they can't respond. Almost like paralyzed by some sort of venom. It's just like, okay, where do I start?
Stockholm syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Where do I start?
And then cause people to create. They're always trying to trick people into creating their own problems. One of the charges that we charged them with is inciting a riot, which was what they were everything that they charged the water protectors with, we charged them with. We charged them with criminal trespassing. We charged them with inciting a riot, all that stuff, because they were the ones who were actually trespassing, and they were the ones who were actually inciting a riot. There was no one else inciting a riet.
And they were the ones who were armed, and they were the ones who were the aggressors, and they were the ones who were attacking people. That's clearly seen. There were a few incidences where maybe snowballs or things like that were thrown at the police, but that was, after 5 or 6 months of abuse, a snowball in the face is pretty well deserved.
That's why it's inciting. They were incited. They wanted violence. They wanted a violent reaction. That's what they were expecting. And I just thank everybody who was there and the way you guys all handled it, because it's amazing. And I consider that as the divine intervention. The people showed up and basically fulfilled all the prophecies that are, the best thing that could ever happen, is that the people just came forward and just had total peace within themselves to just be like, look, we're the power of the people. We don't need to be afraid of them. And it just wave after wave of people kept coming forward and just saying, we're not going to be afraid of them no matter what, And then
it was
the people inevitably,
It was the most powerful juxtaposition of feelings. This intense, overwhelming feeling of true freedom at the same time of, as the opposite feeling, being watched, being, in danger, all of that stuff. But at the same time, there was this other feeling of, well, I can just wander over here, and just pick up this food and bring it back to my camp and cook it, and nobody asked me for money for it. That's like the way we should be living again. Like, we shouldn't have to slave for our basic needs, food, water, a house. So we're in this situation where our slavery is invisible to us, because the vast majority of us, everything that our jobs simply pay for our most basic needs, and that's slavery. That is slavery. So, and it's just at various levels of slavery. Some people have a little bit extra, and some people don't. And so that's what fools people into thinking that we're not all slaves, when we all are, I guess.
Fortunately,
Does anybody know?
in the economic sense, we are all kind of like, I guess you could say we're being traded as slaves in various ways without our knowledge a lot of times. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a slave, but there's definitely a whole bunch of systems that are in place that are accounting for me as a slave. I would say that.
Right. Right. And then I look at young people coming out of college, and you look at the numbers. Okay, they have this massive debt from having gone through college, and they have no possibility of ever making more than somebody who worked in a factory in the 1970s.
Amen.
The vast majority of people.
I got a master's degree from Vanderbilt, and my mom, a high school diploma, government job. She made more than I ever did.
Yep.
When I was working as a professor. It's nuts.
Right. I have a master's degree as well. doesn't really help you make more money, but you certainly owe more.
Yeah.
I can tell you that
master's debt. You have a master's debt. Huh?
Yep.
diploma does help in the Matrix. You come across a Manchurian who wants to discredit you, you'd be like, yo, I got a master's degree. And like, oh, shit. That's the only time it matters, because if having that little piece of paper definitely saved my butt from, like, the interrogators and stuff, because they couldn't dismiss me as, like, you know,
Right.
I'm off the street crazy. It's like, yo, I went to Vanderbilt and I got a master's. And they were like, whoa.
Yeah.
So it does help, even though I can't, like, make a living with it, but I got that.
Yeah, and then we have our
It's a wild world.
colleges and universities. That whole system is screwed as well, because it's it's not a guarantee that you're not guaranteed to be able to make the money that it costs to go there. And a lot of the stuff that you can learn in college now, you can actually learn online.
Okay.
So it would be my advice to people that want to go to college, that they should find a different way to pay for it, other than borrowing any type of money whatsoever. Yeah, it's not worth it anymore. And a lot of people are really scared of that, because we're also in a situation where there's this anti-intellectualism that's going on in America. So we still want educated people, but at the same time, the education system in and of itself is a system by which that enslaves us. So we have to think of knowledge in a different way, and we have to, we really, really do. And we have to get back to the type of skills that our ancestors had. We have to learn how to grow our own food. We have to learn how to forage. We have to relearn how to hunt. We have to get off the grid. We have to unplug from this system that we've been plugged into that enslaves us, because that's how they control us. That's how they control people on the reservation, because you know what? We're just going to turn your electricity off and freeze you to death. And then we're going to take your kids away because you've let them be in a cold house, even though we turned the electricity off. You see how that works? So you got to plug them in every single way possible, so that you don't even need money. So.
Yeah, we need a totally different economy. We need to start learning to make stuff locally, or acquire it locally from somebody who makes it close by.
It's our constitutional currency.
Yeah, everything that gets away from their money system, which is going to collapse anyway. Their money system's going to collapse. The grid is going to come down. So any way that you can find to unplug from those systems is going to mean that your survival is more likely than if you don't unplug from those things. So that would be my advice to people as well. That's possible.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, because we're never going to be totally sovereign as long as we have to keep going to the Walmart or whatever, any kind of grocery stores, and live that way.
Yeah, there's no sovereignty without food sovereignty and without energy sovereignty. You're not sovereign. We can say that we are. We can conceive ourselves of sovereign beings, which we're meant to be, which is the natural law, right? Yeah. But you're not really, because we're plugged in to the Matrix.
Yeah. Time to take the power back, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Totally.
All for it. So we have like 3 minutes left. What do we need to get out there? Please, Facebook friend request me, and we'll get your information out when we will replay this on People's Internet Radio on Tuesday from 6 to 8 Eastern Time, and then we'll release the blog on Wednesday. And then whatever information you have done about the case, we'll put that on the blog on Wednesday when we release the show. Okay. So we can get all this information out and take a look at it and really study it. So so that's where we'll go with that. We got 2 more minutes. Anybody want to get anything else out? How to contact you, or what the case number is on this?
Well, the case number is go ahead.
17-CV-0068, and just Google Eggink versus Trump,
You left out the
And,
08. It's 00608.
608. Yeah, Google Eggink versus Trump, and Facebook Standing Rock Lawful. And yeah, keep looking at our Facebook pages for more updates on Thunderbird Boogie.
Thunderbird Boogie, awesome. Yeah,
and don't plea bargain, please. Everybody, tell your water protectors friends, stop plea bargaining, stop pleading guilty to anything. Just please contact us. Stop that madness.
Yeah,
okay.
Stop it now.
Of Ramen that can advise you and give you the forms on how to file these correctly and like have all this stuff without having to pay thousands of dollars for an attorney or a lawyer. It's all, you have the power yourself. All you need is knowledge and some counseling.
Yeah, all those cases are going to get thrown out. Just be patient, and whoever has charges for peaceful protesting should not be pleading guilty to anything or paying anything.
At all. Yep.
At least, stand by on that one. Don't. Yeah.
They're going to try, and they're going to intimidate. They're going to continue that game.
I know.
So one last little positive note, anyone who's been following any prophecies, like the rainbow is happening, and we're winning across all fronts across the world, so just stay positive and just keep resisting.
Keep it up, guys. Thank you so much for joining. I'm glad that we could get through this Mercury retrograde. We did have some people who were trying to call in but weren't able to. So we'll check out what that situation is with the call-in number, and we'll try to figure it out before the next show. And we'll try to keep you informed about all the things that are going on. There is some people who are resisting the uranium mining that's going on in Indian country, and I'd really like to get their stories out as well and what they're doing, but couldn't get them on tonight, but we got you guys on.
Dunn, if you connect her in with Joanne Spotted Bear, all the stuff that they're doing at the UN is very interesting.
Yeah. Tune in to Joanne Spotted Bear and have her on your show.
She has
very interesting stuff.
All right, thank you guys. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you, Kira.
Yeah, thank you, Kira.
You bet. Take care.